seen it all. Yeah, I thought that I really knew. Hey, yeah, I thought of love. Yeah, a love so pure and true. I've even crossed paths with people and seen their love grow faint. Yeah, all that you've been through, I've been there, and his love stays the same. Yeah, he sees almost past my faults and he keeps chasing me. I got relationship goals, but only God knows how to reach my relationship goals. I need a revelation. You got relationship goals, but only God knows how to reach your relationship goals. You need a revelation. You've been asking, where is Mr. Right? Like I've been searching for that perfect body. Tired of doing it the old way. I gotta get out my own way. I took my shot and I missed. I gotta wrap up the list. Think it's time to let go, but I want the control. Truth is that I don't know, and I'm going loco. I need you to understand when you're fed up. You can find a treasure underneath the pressure. Whoa, revelation. Seen it all. Yeah, I thought that I really knew. Hey, yeah, I thought of love. Yeah, a love so pure and true. I've even crossed paths with people and seen their love grow faint. Yeah, all that you've been through, I've been there, and his love stays the same. Yeah, he sees almost past my faults and he keeps chasing me. I got relationship goals, but only God knows how to reach my relationship goals. I need a revelation. You got relationship goals, but only God knows how to reach your relationship goals. You need a revelation. You've been asking, where is Mr. Right? Like I've been searching for that perfect body. Tired of doing it the old way. I gotta get out my own way. I took my shot and I missed. I gotta wrap up the list. Think it's time to let go, but I want the control. Truth is that I don't know, and I'm going loco. I need you to understand when you're fed up. You can find a treasure underneath the pressure. Whoa, revelation.
Hey, what's up, everybody? How you doing today? Listen, welcome to Triumph Tuesday. I'm your host, Tommie Billups, and I am bringing in our guests and co-hosts for the evening. We got Leon Timbo, and we have Dion Campbell here today. I'm excited to really dive into this conversation about relationships because I believe it's a necessary conversation to have. And I think that for those of you who are joining in, please interact, engage, leave some comments. Let me know where you're watching from. Share this, tag people to it. We're going to go ahead and get started. And I'm going to let these gentlemen introduce themselves. First, Leon, if you go ahead, introduce yourself. Let the people know who you are, and tell them a little bit about Leon, Timbo, and me.
Absolutely. What's going on, family? My name is Leon Timbo. I'm excited about Triumph Tuesdays. Tommie's been lighting the fire in us for weeks now, and I'm ecstatic to be here on the panel today talking about relationships. Leon, Timbo, and me is a tribe, a community of creatives and people here to motivate you into being the best version of who you are. So it's not just about entrepreneurship and building business, it's about building the business of you, self-care, dealing with the hurt and forgiveness and processes of our life that are essential to building great people and in building great business. So I'm excited about Triumph Tuesdays. Since Tommie's launched this, we've had so many
All right.
testimonials about it, and that's what we're doing. I'm having problems. Do you hear that?
I think you're breaking up a little bit. Yeah.
The
Is that
devil's
on
a
my
liar.
end?
The devil's a liar.
Yeah, that's what we got to tell him.
No,
He don't want
it
the
may
people
be
to hear
me.
this.
Let's try Dion, and I'm gonna see if I can work it out on this end, Tommie.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Dion Campbell was one of my mentors. A great man of God, great man of faith, and just great man in general, man. I honor this man. I think this guy is a phenomenal definition of what a man is, and I'm gonna just let him go ahead and introduce himself, and we're gonna get started.
Excited to be here. I'm honored, actually. You know how much I love you and how much respect I have for you. We've been rocking for a long time. And I'm just really excited to talk about relationships with you and Leon Timbo. Actually, Leon Timbo, my family loves Leon Timbo. We have mutual friends, the Coopers in Shreveport, Louisiana. They speak of him often, and my brother Andre. So we've got some mutual friendships there. I'm looking forward to tonight, and I'm just honored that you requested me to come on. For those that don't know me, I'm a 56-year-old husband, been married for 29 years. I have four children, which are adults. My wife and I have dealt with marriage relationships. We're actually certified marriage instructors with Jimmy Evans, and he's the guy that wrote Marriage on the Rockin'. We've done some instructions, so you'll hear a lot of him coming out of me. I pastored for 20 years, but I'm just a normal person that loves to see people flourish in their relationships, and just really excited about being here tonight.
All right, cool. We are going to get started, man. Again, thank you guys for joining us tonight. For Leon, Timbo, and me. Go ahead and share this comment. Let me know where you guys are coming from. Let me know what's going on, and let me know if there's any technical difficulties on y'all end. Let me know if it, okay, she says it sounds good here. Okay, yeah, we just gonna dive right into this. And the first question I want to ask is, how do you define relationships? Dion, how do you define relationships?
More clarity. Are we talking about love relationships? Are we talking about friendships? What type of relationships are we referring to?
You know what? I think just by you saying that kind of brings to light just how the loosely that word is defined, because you just mentioned friendship, relationship, and everything like that. If you can just expound on just all of those aspects of relationships, just what they are.
Relationships are very, very important. One of the things that I believe is that people are gifts, and that God actually sends gifts into our lives because people are resources. So who we have in our world is very, very important. And you have to guard who you let into your world. Our worlds are very, very delicate. And the wrong person in our life could cause absolute chaos, and could cause our whole world to go into turmoil. So relationships are very, very important. And I think I'll just start off with talking about friendships. Just like men having other men as friends, women having other women as friends, just friendships in general. Friendships, how do I define friendships? I think in order to be considered a friend, you have to be able to bring mutual strength to relationship. If someone's going to rock with me, if someone's going to walk with me, this is somebody that I don't have to take care of. I don't have to mentor them, but they bring a level of strength. We actually add value to one another, and that's very, very important. If we're friends, I don't want to be mentoring you or counseling you or any of that. In a friendship, that type of relationship, I have to be able to vent without you fixing me. Sometimes I need someone, a partner to vent with and say, hey, this is what's going on me. And you realize, hey, it's not your responsibility to fix me, but it's a safe place where I can just get all this toxic stuff out of my life and just talk about what's going on. So in order to have a friendship, like just a male friendship, you have to be mature enough to handle life situations. I expect someone who is going to be my friend that they're going to be able to handle their life situations, and also that they're able to tell me the truth. And I'm just kind of giving a working definition of a relationship as far as friendship with men, because I really believe that men need strong relationships in their lives. Iron sharpens iron. And so it's really good to have someone mature in your life who you can rock with. I have a personal requirement for a friendship is that I'm expecting that you won't do anything that I'm going to have to explain why you did what you did. And that's part of the basis for being my friendship. I'm expecting you to hold the line that I never have to explain what you did, and you're never going to have to explain for me. So that's just, just as far as friendships, if we're talking about relationship, I think that those are important to have as well.
Leon, you got any input on that, or anything you like to add to that, or just comment on?
I was just catching the tail end of it. Hopefully, you guys can hear me okay. Are things a little better, Dion, Tommie? Things a little better? Okay, I see Dion. Okay, so I love what Dion spoke on concerning friendship, man-to-man friendship. The reality is, I was meditating on the questions, some of the questions, because I know Tommie, you may throw some new ones in. I was meditating on the questions as we had them, and I realized that I was praying, and I was like, Lord, this relationship thing, because I'm a person, I live by this creed: life moves at the speed of relationship. And it's been something that's kind of been in my heart, but I was asking God to kind of give me some personal insight for that. And I was looking out the window. I'm kind of taking some time off, and I was looking out the window, and I was looking at nature, and I was looking at the fact that we, in relationship to the soil, we in relationship to the ground, we plant seeds, and after we plant seeds, when we plant those seeds, that ground receives that seed. It's not time for that ground to give us back fruit yet, but that ground receives that seed, and then that ground produces fruit that we then benefit from. So the relationship with the soil, something that we don't have any control over, it moves and it goes the way God intended. I think from that example, we see people in relationship. Sometimes we look for levels of fruit from people that we're supposed to be in relationship with that may not be their season to give back to us. It doesn't mean the relationship is bad. It just means that in this tenure of our season of relationship, this may be my moment to give to you. And that was just one of the insights concerning relationship. I have a lot of brothers. I tell my closest friends, if something ever happened to me, I got 5 brothers that you got to call. They're at different parts of the world, but they know to come and rescue me if ever things go awry. And I believe it's because of that understanding of relationship that I see that way. So yeah.
Tommie, Leon.
What happened?
Yeah,
Did you lose me again?
No, we lost Tommie this time.
We lost Tommie. Okay, it's not my fault this time. Great, it's not my fault. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep going. When it comes to relationship, moving at the speed of relationship, it means that understanding that it's not about me. I think one of the things concerning relationship that I had a misnomer about, and that I think our society pushes, is that the definition of a quality relationship depends on how they put me first, how they see me as number one, when in reality, the greatest relationship challenges me The greatest relationships in my life have oftentimes told me the things I didn't want to hear, not the things that I felt would celebrate me, but the things that would make me better. And so when it comes to those iron sharpening iron relationships, we ought not look for relationships that dot our I's and cross our T's, but the ones that look for the things that we're weak in, the places we're weak in. And I'm grateful for seeing relationship in a mature fashion that way in this, in this season of my life. Hey, Tommie.
Hey, yeah, man, I had to move around, man. The internet, I think it was me the whole time. But I missed out on that, but I'm 100% sure you guys kind of carried that in.
He
I
did
want
a
to
great
jump.
job.
I want to jump into the next question. In today's social media culture, right? What is one of the common myths that you believe that we carry about relationships, and that you think that you can probably debunk in this conversation?
Tackle it. I think on social media, one of the things I see all the time is people looking for fathers. And that could be a very, very dangerous thing because of the climate that we live in. One of the things that Leon talked about is selfishness. And one of the things we find in the church world, people in general, they're hurt, they're jacked up, they're messed up, and they need dependable people in their lives that they can count on. And so we've got this phenomenon going on where everyone wants to be a son, everyone wants to be a daughter, and then we've got a group of people that want to be fathers and mothers. And what they literally do is they start teaching people to depend upon them more so than God. I think one of the things that we want to debunk is stop jumping the gun and saying, you're a spiritual father, spiritual mother, this is my son, this is my daughter. The important thing about any mentor, any good mentor is not going to lead you to depend upon them, but they're going to teach you to depend upon God. They're going to lead you to that area. They basically should model what they believe. They should give advice. But one of the primary things that a good mentor should do is teach you how to think, to teach you to reason, to teach you to process, and you should give them their wisdom. But there's too many people that are coming in bondage and ending up in unhealthy relationships because this whole fathering dimension. The Bible talks about we don't have many fathers, so there's not many true fathers out there. So just be careful. You got to look for a mentor who ultimately is not trying to control you, not trying to manipulate you, but realistically is trying to lead you to God. What are your thoughts about that, guys?
Oh, see, we're gonna have this kind of conversation, Dion. Oh, it's gonna be this kind of conversation. Okay, okay, okay. So, when you get a certain age, you tend to see things the way Dion's saying it, and I am such a proponent of that space. The reality is, you do develop a culture of codependency when it comes to those types of titles. And hear me, I grew up in a culture with my father who pastored for over 30 years with a culture that reverberated the way that Dion is speaking. And so I saw the pros and I saw the cons of that space. But what I can say in a healthy response would be the hole or the sinking hole to these titles or to these references. It develops a weakness in the individual. It tends to make the individual not accountable for the strength of the mentor. It tends to make the individual always in need of direction, always in need of almost being fed and not giving the tools to gain this understanding and this path on your own. And I think challenging people is essential in every type of relationship. So that's not limited to the madre or padre position, the matriarch or patriarch of your lives, whether spiritual or physical. It is a natural I think, healthy relationship dynamic. And if that doesn't exist in every relationship, there's a hole in that relationship, and there's some things that you may be missing out on. But I do not feel like that title is really given in a healthy context, and I do feel like that's a misnomer in social media. Also, what leans into that was something I mentioned slightly earlier, Tommie, which was we define the success of relationship by how much these relationships see us as number one. It's almost like if you have a relationship, there's a lot of quotes that even we'll repost. If your relationship doesn't see you, doesn't back you, doesn't support you, isn't always there for you, then that relationship's not a good relationship. That relationship's not that's not a real friend to you. That's not a real dynamic to you. And we should really watch out for these self-centered, dynamic-driven relationship goals. We should really watch out for relationship models that put you at center, because in reality, the best posture, Jesus says it himself, the best posture is one of the giver, not one of the receiver. And so if we're co-signing a culture that always sees us being given to, whether it's attention or money or support, if we always see that as our prerequisite for quality relationships, we're going to be misled.
Wow, that's good. And that's kind of a good way to segue into this next question, which is why is self-care important when it comes to relationship? Just thinking about what you just said and how culture has tainted the idea of what like self-care really is to make it like this selfish I thing, instead of actually like getting health or getting healthy as an individual. It becomes a thing about everything revolves around me and I'm going to operate in that space. So how do we navigate that line of self-care versus being selfish? Like how do you navigate the two, and how do you avoid diving too far off in the selfish realm?
Go ahead, Leon.
Well, what triggered with me, guys, was when you said that. What triggered with me was you're not going to be in any relationship. You're not going to be any kind of parent. You're not going to be any kind of spouse. You're not going to be any kind of supervisor on a job and not understand the rhythm of exchange. At times, you're the one giving the most. At times and at seasons, you're the one pouring the most. Why? Because it may be a time that what you have a strength in is necessary for the moment at hand. And when that season changes, when the ebb and flow of those relationships change, then you'll be in a posture to receive, and someone else will be in a posture to give. And I think the exchange of conversation and communication concerning those ebbs and flows are important in relationship. But yeah, selfishness is something we teach in the name of self-care. But there's no healthy relationship dynamic that's ever going to last or survive in a self-centered culture. With a you're not looking out for me, you're not seeing me all the time, every time. I need you here, I need you there. And so we really need to honestly assess those relationships around us that we've misled in that way. And because we can never do anything with it unless we accept it, unless we identify, unless we, hey, this is me, then we can give a healthy solution to some of the calamities we've created or we've allowed, because sometimes others have brought those things into our lives and we've accepted it. But now that it's a part of us, we don't really know how to get out of the cycle, you know. You're muted, Tom.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Apologize, man. The technical stuff is I'm figuring this thing out. But did you want to expound on that a little bit more? What should I call you? Because I feel like I'm disrespecting you by calling you by your first name.
Me too, Tommy. Me too, bro. I'm over here. I'm over here. I know some of the background. I know who I'm talking to. You're not going. I'm like, what do we call you, Dion?
If we're gonna get something done, we got to call us by who we are.
Yes,
But
sir.
let me be real. Let me be real. Somehow the church has taught us, and I'm not bashing the church. I love the church. Don't get me wrong. But I always thought it was almost sinful to think about yourself. So the word self-care never came into view. And it's almost idolatrous when you get to the point where you literally think that you're God and not the Holy Spirit. And so we take on this superhuman persona and it ends up wrecking us. It wrecks our family because we're so busy trying to help everyone else and we've never taken the time to help ourselves. I remember maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, I pastored for 20 years, worked hard in the kingdom, fought many fights, dealt with many battles, just living life and handling business. And I got to a point where I wasn't taking care of myself. And I went to Louisiana and I broke down in Louisiana. And I ended up at a good friend of mine house, Bishop in Shreveport, Louisiana. And I'm broken, I'm messed up. And he and my brother and his family, they prayed for me. And that was the turning point for me when I realized I can't do this by myself. And I looked at all the damage that I had done in the name of the Lord by not taking care of my marriage, not taking care of my kids. And so I had to slow down and stop and understand that taking care of myself was a priority in my life. Any relationship that you're in, it pulls from you. It takes a piece of your life when you, especially if you're one that pours into other people. And if you're not careful, you can get to a point of depletion. And when the grace of God dips out of your life, when you start doing things that you're not called to do or more what you're supposed to do, and grace leaves, you realize that the Spirit of God was like Superman in your life. It was the one that was actually doing the work, and you're left here with this broken shell. And that's when you get into trouble. You make bad decisions. You hurt people. You have no grace for people. So self-care is essential. And I had to learn that it was not a word after I broke down. And from that point, I'm more deliberate in making sure I take the time to refuel. It's okay for me to take a break. It's okay for me not to answer your phone call. It's okay for me to get away and just be with God and refuel.
I think that's so powerful because as you know, as a younger man and looking at like a lot of my elders, it's not a lot of times where I actually seen a lot of them actually take that time to like just stop and like just focus on them. Like they've always been running, they've always been going. And when you look at their lives on the outside, you know, many people are benefiting from their work, but in their private lives and things like that, you see like the destruction and the chaos that trails because they haven't took that time to like really like focus on themselves, their family. Even, you know, I was be talking about Christians, you know, one of the things that, you know, we used to always hear like PK kids are the worst kids, right? Say all the time, pastors' kids are the worst kids. And like, I don't deny that the devil fights, but there's a component of that a lot of that comes from the neglect of a child looking at their parent and seeing their parent serve this person more than they're serving their house. And there's a bit of resentment and bitterness that could build up in that. And I see that a lot in not just the church, just in general. People are just going and no one stops to really, you know, like you said, take that time to really not answer phone calls, to really rest and get on their feet. So I think, yeah, self-care is very important to relationships, because if you're no good, you can't be no good to nobody else. That's one of the things that I try to really work on, is like really making sure that I'm good internally. Like I going to therapy, taking time away to like just relax and not do things, turning down events and engagement, turning down jobs and just sitting at home and like just getting myself together. Because if I don't, you know, eventually I'm gonna break down. And if I'm in a car and I'm carrying other people and I break down, all those people gonna be stuck where I was going, you know. So I have to tend to make sure I'm good. Self-care is very anything on before we move on to the next question.
No, that's good.
I thought
That's good.
what you said was powerful, Tommie. And I think that you hit on the essence of relationships is that people have to take care of themselves first and foremost. You will never have a healthy relationship unless you are healthy within yourself. Your core has to be strong. And if your core isn't strong, then it will affect everything else. You know, Jesus says this powerful scripture. He says, cleanse thou first the inside of the platter, that the outside be clean. So not to be all scripturist or anything, it was such a powerful point. What he's literally saying that how you interact with your outer world is determined by how you're dealing with what's going on inside of you. And traditionally, we've been so fake. We've tried to act like everything was okay. How you doing? Oh, I'm fine. I'm great. When realistically, you're not okay. You're not fine. And we got to get to the point where we can honestly say, I'm doing good today. Right. And that's okay. And begin to have that conversation and begin the process of healing. But I think in relationships, what you talked about, Tommie, is one of the key components is that people have to be delivered within themselves first and foremost, because this world has shaped us into something and people we were never intended to be. Yeah, and I think that's why we have so many relationship issues, is because we have not taken the time to deal with our issues, but they're submerged under this facade that we put before people, but really we've never dealt with ourselves. And before we can talk about having a healthy marriage, before we can talk about having a healthy friendship, we've got to deal with our own personal issues and submit these things under God and get fixed. And that comes through various patterns, but that is the core. You hit the nail on the head, Tommie.
Nail on the head, brother.
Yeah. And that leads into the next question is how does unresolved issues impact relationships? You know, we have issues, you know, whether it's, you know, daddy issues, daddy wasn't there, mommy wasn't there, you know, being molested as a child, being rejected as a child, different things that we experience, different traumas that we experience that we never deal with. We sweep it under the rug because we're like, oh, it happened. Ain't nothing I can do about it. I'm going to just keep moving. And we see this often. A lot of people never really deal with those things. It's kind of like, well, you got to get over it or like, but it ends up bleeding into all the other relationships that you have. So how does those unresolved issues impact your relationship, and how can one really get to the point where they resolve those unresolved issues?
Well, when you ask that question, I think about the rabbit hole that this can go. The reality is, as a people of color, there's a, and this is not to exclude any other cultures, but there's a underlying traumatic, traumatic experience that we live in, and I'll be honest with you, there's some family traumatic experiences that we live in. So you take that, and then you compound that with relationship, church, those, and so that's layered. So nobody really has to hear the Spirit of God or hear some spiritual essence to say everybody in here got problems. That ain't nothing enlightening. That's just truth. That's the truth of existence. I think the idea of defining something as unresolved is key to us addressing it, because there tensions are made to be managed and problems are made to be solved. And this may just be my opinion on it, and I just want to put it in front of you guys, and let's dialogue about it. But tensions are made to be managed, problems are made to be solved. And I think some of the mistakes that we try to do is we try to solve tension and manage problems. And so when it comes to those unresolved issues, I believe that those are tensions that at times need a measure of grace to walk through, address, pull and pause and relax, and not give yourself into certain situations like one who doesn't have that tension would do. I think really accepting some of those spaces that you're in. If you have a problem in a certain area, then you know that tension needs to be managed and disciplined. Other people may not have a problem in that area. And so as you address this unresolved space, I think there's a manageability to us walking into our better selves. Scripture says walking like Christ, but in life, walking into the best versions of ourselves. And in that space, it comes with identifying what those tensions are, and understanding that some of those tensions are the key to our strengths. Some of those tensions are the key to why we see and have compassion the way that we do. So it's not always with a negative connotation. I see kids who are abused clearly and more compassionately than one who didn't experience molestation, maybe the way that I did growing up. And so that unresolved issue has given me a superpower to see things that I wouldn't normally see. So here we are again, managing those tensions, and problems that need to be solved. When people are in your life and they no longer need to be in your life, then that's something you can solve. That's something you can do something about. I think we get the two mistaken, and that may be the issue that we walk in. That's my 2 cents, though.
Go ahead, Dion. You can go, and then I'll say something because I just in that conversation that you just had, I just had some self-revelation stuff about myself that I'm processing right now. But go ahead.
I'm a firm believer in deliverance. And I love what Leon said, not the type of deliverance where you go up to the altar, somebody lays hands on you, calls out devils, and you leave and you're unchanged. But I'm talking about serious deliverance where you begin to talk about dialogue about your issues. Having conversations with someone you trust is one of the key components to unearthing long-standing unresolved issues. And we've spent our whole lives hiding, trying to act like everything is all right. But the first part of dealing with unresolved issues is to first admit that you have a problem. One of the areas where the enemy gains strength is what he has done to us, we keep it under wraps. We hide or we submerge it. And the enemy hates for us to talk about our issues. He hates for things that have been hidden, things that have been done to us in our childhood, traumatic experiences that we have gone through, and put them on the back burner and us up to the demonic realm. And we start manifesting all these devils because of unresolved issues. And this diametrically affects the relationships that we have because we got all this stuff on the inside of us. I've seen people change dramatically by sitting down with them, having open dialogue, asking probing questions, and them being honest, taking all that stuff that's on the inside of them and laying it in front and being able to look at it. And once you expose it, because you can't get delivered from anything that you don't expose. Once you expose it, put that thing out there, then you can see it clearly and begin to deal with it. And then if there are devils attached to whatever is going on with you, you can cast them out and make a shift. One of the things that I do is I have internal negotiations with myself. I look at myself and I muse about things and dysfunctionalities within my own life. And I tell myself, I need deliverance in this area. And then I start the process of discipline. If I need some things dealt with in my life, I'll go and get help. I'll get someone to pray with me. I'll get someone to take me through deliverance. And that has helped me to mature and to grow. And it has given me the ability to have healthy relationships. And I think that's one of the keys for saints is that they have never really gone through deliverance. You get hands laid on you, that's not good enough. You really need to deal with the issue and make some shifts internally and change some patterns that are on the inside of you. And if there's some devils within you, you can get those devils cast out. It will literally change your life. But that's one of the faults of the church. We've been so charismatic. And I love the conversation with Leon and Tommie, because these are probing questions that really cause people to look within themselves, and it brings things to the surface. And once you bring things to the surface, you can start to deal with them. So I think that that's a very, very important component.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's so good. That's so good. As you guys were talking, I was just sharing this with a friend the other day. Being that I'm a divorcee or whatever, and we were talking about relationships. We are talking about how my marriage fell apart, or how marriage falls apart in general. And like a lot of times when you're in relationships, it's easy to point out what the other person did or how they did affected you. And I did like a real self-reflection of myself and said, okay, there were things that happened in my marriage that would not have happened or would not have affected me had I dealt with some unresolved issues that I had from my childhood, right? So growing up, I grew up, my mom and my dad, amazing people. I love them to death. But in every family there are some flaws or some things that happen that shouldn't happen. So my dad was like really tough on me, and my dad really didn't have like a solid relationship between us until my adulthood. Growing up, I was a crybaby, right? I cried all the time. And anything, I was so sensitive, I would always cry. So not only my dad, my brothers, my uncle, they would always call me girl, sissy, punk, you acting like a little girl and all of this other stuff. So that affected me, right? So growing up as a kid, I keep hearing all these people tell me I'm a girl, I'm a sissy, I'm this. So subconsciously, I'm trying to convince myself that I'm not that. So in doing that, I'm chasing after women. I'm trying to, getting into pornography, getting into, trying to get as many women as I can, or get into bed with many women as I can, because I wanted to convince myself and convince them is what I was trying to tell myself. But I was trying to convince myself that I wasn't a girl, that I wasn't a sissy or anything like that. So I dealt with that. On top of that, I'm dealing with rejection issues, right? As a kid, I talk about this a lot. My mom, we went to school across town. It was a predominantly white neighborhood. We come from, the hood or whatever. It was good. I'm not gonna say the hood because my mom, and my dad, we was pretty decent, whatever. But we weren't we didn't have as much money as those people that I was going to school with. So I would go to school, I would get talked about because I didn't have the latest shoes and the freshest clothes and everything like that. And it affected me on the inside of rejection. So I was scared to interact with people. And when somebody didn't accept who I was, I would do things to get them, to be my friend. So I'm funny. So I'm going to tell as many jokes as I can so you can like me, right? So I carry that on with me moving into relationships. So when I had moments in my relationship, in my marriage, where I felt like I was being rejected, I had to find something to nurture that rejection. And the devices that I found weren't healthy. When my ex wasn't speaking life or saying something to me that made me feel some type of way, had I been healed from my unresolved issues, I could have looked at that situation differently. But because I wasn't, it impacted me. It caused me to drift into other directions because I didn't deal with those issues, and I brought them into my marriage, thinking that marriage was going to solve those problems of lust, those problems of, this, thinking that my marriage was going to solve those problems. And the reality, honestly, for me, it amplified those issues. So seeing how unresolved issues really, like, you can't sweep things under the rug. Like, you have to deal with those issues. You have to get to the core of why do these things trigger you? Why do these things make you do what you do? Because and a lot of people don't. We don't. I didn't, because I would blame it on other things, but it wasn't until I got to the core of who I was and what I experienced, that I realized, yeah, I had some issues, and had I dealt with those issues prior to being married, maybe I would have still been married. Maybe things would have turned out differently. But because I didn't deal with those issues, it fractured a lot of, not just my marriage, but other relationships, in friendships, in family relationships. A lot of those issues fractured those relationships. So dealing with those unresolved issues is vital in any relationship. And I believe that, as we move forward in this conversation, I'm hoping that people that hear this can hear this and look internally within themselves and say, okay, yeah, that's an issue that I never dealt with, that I'm just covering up, and I can see how it's impacting all of my other relationships.
That's so good. That's so good, Tommie. I think about the fact that when Dion spoke about conversation and about communication and about those people that you can be honest and transparent with, um, oftentimes I ask myself, had I told my um, the people that were most important in my life, had I told them my issues, had I told them my problems, when you say certain things to me, it reminds me of this. When you do this, it has nothing to do with you, but you trigger me in a way that I don't know when I lash back out. I need you to know where that came from. Sometimes having conversations with others, accountability partners, people who don't mind saying, you stupid for that. You know that wasn't good. Sometimes you need to hold on to that and not say what you're feeling at the moment, because what you're feeling at the moment is temporary. And now you have to deal with what you've spoken. Having people to say those things to us in those moments, I think when I grew up in deliverance too, my dad, the deliverance pastor, listen, I brought plenty of bucket to the front of the stage, plenty of bucket for the lines, and I've been a part. And so I really believe in authentic deliverance. But what I also understand is that after that experience, if there's no speed of relationship to move us into a life of discipline and addressing those issues and accountability, those buckets filled with that liquid is meaningless. And so I do realize that what you feed will grow. And sometimes you need to feed some people telling you no, some people telling you you're selfish, some people telling you to stop trying to perform for everybody and be who you really are, and deal with the results of who you really are, instead of living a lie and being frustrated inside and no one ever knows. And so you're sitting here at the end of your life never having a friend because you never gave yourself an opportunity to be the best version of you, the most honest version of you. That's what came to my mind, Tommie, when you were talking.
We call them people haters. the ones that try to tell us hey, nah, that's not smart, man, don't do that. I had some friends, man, and we had a falling out, and it was my fault. And they were trying to help me. They were telling me about myself, and I didn't want to hear it at the time, because I'm like, man, y'all supposed to be my friends, y'all supposed to be on my side, y'all supposed to have my back. But then again, that's that rejection issue, those things that I didn't do. I feel like everybody's against me, right? So it wasn't until I had to sit down like, yo, he was right. I had to put my pride down, right? That's another thing. That pride is a fool. But having those people, like you said, that's gonna tell us, nah, that's stupid, man. Don't do that. You do that you're gonna screw everything up. And we have to be willing to listen to those people. That was good. That was good. Dion, you got anything else on that before we move on to the next thing?
Absolutely. I think that it points to the need, in particular for men, Leon and Tommie. Where are the spaces for men to go where they can dialogue and get deliverance? One of the most underserved aspects in the church are men. Men rule and dominate everything, but who are we literally accountable to? I think one of the most satisfying things that I have ever done was create safe spaces for men to come and find out who they really are. Because none of us knows who we really are until God speaks. So what we had to do, and I want to challenge every leader that is listening to this tonight, it's twofold. I want to challenge leaders to begin to create what I call environments of definition. These are safe places in your church where men can come and they can hear the voice of the Lord, so that God can debunk every lie that the enemy have ever told them and the false areas of manhood which they have walked in. And also they can hear the voice of God to tell them who they really are. But that means that men have to voluntarily submit themselves to this type of process, and that leaders have to put in place, or men that just want to see change have to put in place these spaces where men can come to and can hear the voice of the Lord. I think that's one of the most powerful things that we can ever do, because if God gets men, think about it, he gets the rest of the world. As men go, the rest of the world goes. If you got dysfunctional men, it messes up the ecosystem that God put into place, and you find dysfunctionality everywhere. But when God finds a man who is made whole and has learned to put the harness on and fully just submit to the will of God and has been made whole, you've got a whole new ball game place, and every demon in hell screams at the sight of a man who's been made whole.
That's so good. That's so good. That's so good. So on the topic of unresolved issues, right? We talked about that. We dealt with that. One of the questions I had, so those are internal unresolved issues, right? How do we deal with unresolved issues between relationships? The question that I had was, does reconciliation needs to happen in every relationship in order to have healthy relationships moving forward? So when you have those fallouts or those disagreements or those just the relationship just goes sour, does reconciliation needs to happen in that particular relationship? I guess this is the example. If I have an issue with my father, right? This is just a hypothetical. I love my daddy. If I have an issue with my father, right, and it's a bad issue, can I move forward in other relationships while still having that issue with my father, or will that issue with my father bleed over into other relationships? So do I have to reconcile that some type of way in order to have healthy relationships? I don't know if that's a loaded question or if that question is but
it's so loaded. I'm gonna let Dion answer. Let me tell you, let me be honest with you. I don't have the solution to that answer, because for me, when I'm triggered that way, I do things to protect people from me and me from people. And at times in my life, I found that I've just cut, and I've not cut because it was healthy. I cut because it was the cleanest thing to do. And so I'm not necessarily saying that's the thing to do. I do not have a success record with that. Dion's gonna help you with that one. He's going.
I'm just going to say what's on my heart. I think first and foremost, gentlemen, we got to recognize, is that relationship ordained by God, or was God the one that cut the relationship? Some relationships are not meant to last. You got to know whether this relationship is of God or is not of God. There are times when God will break up a relationship to move you on to what's next in your life. Um, I think we should all try to reconcile, but that doesn't mean that everyone is on the top of the list or your priority spectrum at all times. And God will literally break some people out of your life. For me, I always try to be cordial with someone. I don't have to rock with you fully, but if we have an issue, you know, I had an issue with an apostle in Chicago, and it just didn't make sense to me. And one of the things that I used to kind of say, do I need to deal with this relationship or not, was that God kept putting this person on my mind. He stayed on my mind. So I said, that's an indication that this needs to be dealt with. There are some relationships that will just evaporate. You won't even think about it, and God won't deal with you about them. Of course, you reconcile the issue. That does not mean you have to go back into walking and journeying with that person. But with this particular gentleman, I had a conversation with him. We had not talked in 2 or 3 years, but he stayed on my mind. So I was deliberate in going after him. And I think God looks at our intentions, the intentions of the heart. Sometimes people don't want to reconcile with you. Sometimes people don't get it right. But I think as long as you've done your part, that God will recognize that. And at the end of the day, we realize that there was a miscommunication that had kept us apart. And so it was fixed. And now I'm at the point where organically I'm going to allow it to happen or not to happen. I don't push the issue, but I've learned to gauge the temperature of the Holy Spirit on whether or not to stay in a relationship or not. Sometimes God just removes people out of your life because they're not able to handle who you've become, because we're constantly changing. I think you got to gauge where you're at right now and if that person is designed to be in your world.
That's good. That's good. That's good. Because I think when I think of reconciliation, I don't necessarily think like all right, we got to be buddies again. We got to be cool. We got to hang out again. When I think reconciliation, I think just getting to the point to where it's no longer a stain on your heart with the issue. Like it's no longer a place where it's like anytime you hear that name or see that person, you feel some type of way. That's what I like. That's how I define reconciliation in relationships in that matter. Not necessarily coming back together. I know me personally, I've had some experience where like it's been a few people I've been wanting to slap, right? And I've had to like really go deep and like, okay, listen, you can't move forward with that type of thing in your heart, because what was happening was, and I was rightfully so, I was hurt. Like there were some things that were said that weren't true. There were some things that was put out rightfully so, like in the context of, did I have a reason to beat this person up or slap this person? I had every right to. But in my heart, the thing that triggered me was when it got to the point where I would see them succeeding. I would see, something happening in their life that was successful. And I'm like, why are they successful? They don't deserve success. Like I wanted to see their downfall. And I had to reel that back in like, whoa, dude, what are you doing? You want to see somebody fail? There's no way possible that you can operate in this world, especially if you call yourself a Christian and you wanting somebody to fail. You want to see the destruction of somebody, right? So when I got to that point, I realized, okay, I need to reconcile with this issue. I'm probably never going to get an apology from that person, but I have to reconcile within myself that even if that person never apologizes, I'm good. I don't, I wish them the best. I hope for success. But I have to remove that bitterness within my heart because, like I said, I can't be out here preaching love and telling people to love everybody, and I want that person to get hit by a car. Like, it don't work like that, right? Yeah. So you have to, like, really reconcile within yourself. Like, sometimes it ain't gonna happen. I know that I think Pastor Chris Rock said this. He said, the saying is, what goes around comes around. And you're like, sometimes it just don't come back around. People be waiting years and years for that thing to happen to that person that did them wrong when they was 15 years old, and they 70, 80 years old, still waiting. It's coming. It's coming. And you wasted all that time that you could have been living your life, enjoying the fruits of the world, and you sitting there waiting for something destructive to happen to somebody that did you wrong years ago. That's not peace. That's chaotic. So I chose and I decided I don't want this burden on my heart anymore. I don't want to be sitting up here miserable and mad anymore. So I reconcile within myself for that relationship.
That's good. That's good. I believe there are 3 rooms. Again, one of those things that I ask God all the time. Like, God, what do I do with this situation that involves this individual? And I realize that there are 3 rooms. There's the room that they sit in, there's the room that I sit in, and then there's a room of the sin itself. And when I say sin in the sense of missing the mark, where we missed it, where whatever happened, that room is where we missed it. And what you're saying is something that I've come to accept. I've come to reconcile with that room and address that room. Whether that individual wants to meet me in that room for healing and process, that's something that they have to deal with God. But that room, my spite, my hate, my vindictive nature, this nature of I deserve better, I need to get back, is in that room. It's not with them, because in reality, what happened in that room, if we don't forgive that room and address that room, it doesn't matter who they are. Somebody else can come and create another scenario in that same room, because that same room is where we're weak. That same room is what the trigger is. And so I appreciate you using the term of reconciling myself concerning that thing in that space. And I do think that's necessary, but we don't really have control over another person's progress or plight of healing. And, so we can't be held by the way God's walking with them in their life. It may take until they're 80 for them to realize that room existed. But for me, reconciling with their room is super important. So thank you for that language, Tommie.
I'm muted. My bad. There we go. With that being said, you know, we live in a cancel culture society now. Everybody want to cut everybody off. I see it every New Year's. You know, my circle getting smaller. I had to cut some people off that wasn't there for me. I had to do this. Everybody is just me and my few or whatever. When and I phrased this question. I said that what's the question? How should one navigate divorce? Now, oftentimes when we hear divorce, is automatically we jump to, you know, man, wife, husband. But the reality is divorce is the separation of two things, right? The separation of something that was once one. That can be a relationship. How do you navigate that aspect of relationships? When is the proper time to divorce a friendship, divorce, you know, family, toxic family that's no good? When is the right time to separate yourself from relationships that no longer are either serving you or becoming something that's interfering with your progress as a person? Like, how do you navigate that?
I want to hear your wisdom on this, Tommie, because you in deep waters right now, sir.
Didn't he do it? Did he do it, Dion? He's trying to throw us out there. What you doing?
Yeah, he's trying. No. I want to hear. I want to understand. I'm listening, sir.
Okay. I'll talk about it. I think, and we kind of hit on some points. I think what it all boils down to, one of the things is self-awareness for me. I know that was a big component for me, just dealing with just relationships in general. I don't think a lot of us are self-aware of ourselves. So if we're not self-aware, on the outside, it looks like everybody is against us or nobody is for us. When the reality is there's some aspects of our lives that like causes people to respond or react to the way that we respond and react, right? So, you know, if I ask somebody to help me, right, and they can't help me, I instantly say, okay, they're cut off. Because if it was me, I would be there for them. I would have did this for them, right? We put these expectations on people, and when they don't meet that expectations, we want to cut them off, or we think that they're not for us, right? And a lot of the times it's just simple, like, nah, they just can't do it at the moment. But because, again, we haven't dealt with some of those internal issues, we're not self-aware of our own issues, we project what we think or how we feel onto other people. So if I feel like, you know, if I grew up and everybody, you know, I keep going back to dad. Dad, if you watching this is not towards you. I'm just using you as an example. I love my daddy. My daddy is a good person. I love my daddy. I'm just speaking the hypotheticals and just using him as an example. So if my daddy promised me as a kid, you know, I'm 5 years old, my daddy tell me, hey, listen, I'm gonna come pick you up Saturday and I'm taking you to Disney World, right? Saturday, Monday, I'm excited because he told me I'm going to Disney World. Tuesday, I'm still excited. I'm pumped. I'm telling all my friends, we going to Disney World Saturday. Wednesday come around, I done went and picked out an outfit that I'm gonna wear to Disney World. Thursday come around, I'm telling my mama, we going to Disney World. I can't wait. Friday, I'm texting daddy. I'm calling daddy. I can't wait till you get here. Saturday morning come, I'm excited. You know, it gets around noontime, daddy ain't showed up yet. I'm like, all right, it's cool, daddy. He'll be here eventually. It start getting dark. Daddy still ain't here. You get close to 8, 9 o'clock, daddy don't show up. Now, in my mind, anytime somebody says they're going to do something for me, I go back to that moment when my daddy told me he was taking me to Disney World and didn't show up. So I project that onto everybody who says they're going to do something for me and they don't come through, right? So instantly you're done. My daddy did this. We don't say this out loud, but subconsciously, that's what we're really saying. My daddy did this, so you gonna do the same thing. So I'm cutting you off before I give you the opportunity for you to hurt me like my dad hurt me, right? And then sometimes it's like we were saying earlier, having those friends that's going to speak to us and tell us, yo, that's stupid. Don't do that. The moment they try to correct us, we want to cut them off. They ain't got our back. They ain't on our side. It comes to relationships. You may be in a relationship, right? And you got a girlfriend or a boyfriend and y'all on the rocks and you go vent to your homies or you go vent to your girlfriends and your girlfriends tell you like, nah, that you shouldn't do that. That's stupid. Oh, you on his side. Oh, you rocking with him. I see where we at. So it's like a lot of it is like we have to really take a step back and look at ourselves before we cut off anybody and really say, okay, is this person, should I cut this person off? Are they serving the relationship that we have? Is this relationship helping me become a better person? Is this relationship guiding me? Is this relationship imparting in me or helping me get to a better place? If not, yeah, of course, cut them off. But a lot of times we don't analyze that. And what ends up happening, a lot of people have been cutting off people that's still supposed to be serving them in their lives. And we miss out on opportunities and we miss out on things because we cut off a person that we're still supposed to be connected to. So that's my wisdom.
I needed to hear it because that gives me 30 seconds worth of toppings to put on top of that, because you threw me out there, and I want to let you're not going to do that today, not this Tuesday, not this Triumph Tuesday. No, but to the point, I feel like when you're talking about when it's the right time to divorce, when it's the right time to divorce relationships, friendships, I can give you parameters, but then there's Hosea in scripture. I can give you parameters, but then there's dynamics that when there's a space for you or a ground for you to till and to work on and to work with, and something that, I'm a church boy, so I'm gonna use church lingo, assignments, right? I'm gonna use certain lingos and assignments that aren't here to benefit you. I believe that grace is sufficient. And I also believe that by the Spirit, when seasons are up in certain dynamics, but you only know by the Spirit. I don't think there's a cookie cut situation for everybody. That's not a 10-step system. And your spiritual mother or spiritual father can't give you this insight. The reality is there's some things that we're here on this earth to walk with people, to walk with them. And relationship is a spectrum. Just because we've given people certain rights to certain rooms in our lives that they were never meant to be given doesn't mean that they're not supposed to be in our lives at all. No, it doesn't mean at times they're not. But consider this. Some people are on the outskirts to support and to be there for you to pour into and give back to. Some people are closer. Let's look at the circle of Jesus. You had everybody. You had the 12. You had the 3. You had him alone. I think those dynamics are important as it relates to how we divorce or put people in the spectrum of relationship. I don't think there's a cookie cut to it. So I went a minute and 6 seconds. Sorry. I'm done. That was it.
Okay. Dion, you got any input on that?
Just talking about divorce, I think that there's talking about real divorce in marriage. And the question you posed was, how should one navigate divorce in marriage? Just from the outside looking in, as one who has counseled or tried to talk to people who have been through that, I've dealt with several people who have gone through that process. It's almost like a death process. And it's like someone literally dies, something dies, and people have to grieve and go through all these things. And the Lord literally has to walk you through some things. From the outside looking in, I think one of the most difficult things when dealing with someone who's going through that process is that you cannot take sides because you love both parties, and they've gotten to a point where they both feel that they can no longer live together, that they can no longer coexist. And for me, I would always discourage people from getting a divorce. I would do everything I can to try to get them to reconcile, to deal with themselves first and foremost, and then to even go into counseling. As a friend of people that I knew, I would never try to counsel them, because you get into these issues where they will pit you one against another and use you and claim this and claim that. So I always point them to an outside source, someone that doesn't know either one of them, so that they can get the proper help that they need. But I would try to discourage it at all counts. And unfortunately, it does happen. You still have to deal with it. And the process that people have to go through, they have to walk through some things that it takes some time. Once you're in the process of a divorce. It's not a time to look for another relationship, because the Lord literally has to take you through a process of separating the embodiment of that person that you have binded yourself to in the spirit realm. Relationships are very difficult, and there's such a spiritual dynamic to any type of relationship where your emotional realm literally find home in the body of another person, and contingent upon how that person is, you go as well. And one of the indications that, when people divorce but God has not ordained that divorce, is you still carry that person on the inside of you, and you can feel their pain. You can't stop thinking about them. It bothers you tremendously. When they're up, you're up. When they're down, you're down, because their emotions have found a home with you. And that's with any type of relationships. And in the divorce, when that happens, it's literally takes time for the souls to untangle, the spirit realm to untangle, and it could just be a very difficult situation. It almost feels like the death of a loved one. So I don't even think I answered the question, but it's just some of the things that I've experienced when I've seen people go through that process.
Yeah, that is good. That is good. I mean, I would, because I can somewhat speak on it, being that I am divorced or whatever, and I can just speak on it from my experience of navigating my own divorce. I too, man, I'm a strong advocate of marriage. The contrary to popular belief, divorced people don't think everybody should get divorced. I wholeheartedly believe that a couple should exhaust all means of reconciliation, fixing the problem before they even consider divorce. I love families. I hate seeing families broken apart because of divorce. I love people. I love couples. I love marriage. So if I've had people come to me since having my divorce, yeah, man, I'm a divorcer, or yeah, man, I'm leaving. Nah, man, go try to work that out, man. You don't want these problems, man. It ain't all rainbows and butterflies because you done got loose. But I will say, man, my divorce taught me so much about myself, right? Like I said earlier, it was easy for me to point out every single thing that my ex did in our marriage that caused everything to go the way that it happened. But it took it took humility, first of all. Like, God had to really humble me. But it took me laying down my pride to really analyze myself, because I wanted to be healthy, right? I didn't want to be, that person that go from marriage to marriage. They on their fourth marriage, and they divorce on their way to their fifth divorce or whatever. I didn't want to be that. I really wanted to be healed, and I talk about it a lot because I'm 32 years old. I got married at 21. So pretty much a third of my life was me being married. That was my identity of who I was. I went from being a kid to being a married man. And now, I'm an adult single man. So the majority of my life, I was not majority, but a third of my life, I was married. So I had to do a lot of scaling back to really see who is Tommie? You're not a husband anymore. So you can't identify that as that anymore. So I had to do a lot of soul search. There were some nights, man, I was going crazy. I had to go to therapy, sit on the therapist's couch. I remember my first therapy session, talk to my therapist. She brings me in the office and she's like, okay, so what's going on? And I'm just venting. I'm telling her everything that's bothering me, everything that's went wrong. And she's like, okay, cool. So we'll schedule our next session for next week and I'll see you. And on my drive home, I'm like, yo, she didn't even do nothing. All I did was talk. But the reality was, as I, began driving, I realized that was the first time I've heard myself talk about what I was dealing with on the inside out loud. And it was from that moment on that I was like, okay, now these are some issues. I was able to identify some root issues of things that caused some other issues in my marriage, why I did what I did and things like that. So I was able to navigate it through that. The problem comes in with a lot of people who go through divorce is when they're going through a divorce, they don't have a community of people that really walks with them through the divorce. You have different types of people. You have the people that's going to be on your side in the negative way. They're going to encourage you to do silly stuff. They're going to encourage you to act the fool, go out there, get drunk, get you another girl, get you another man, party. You got them type of people. Then you got the type of people that's going to get divorced and it's your fault. Then you got the people who mean well, and I mean it. Listen, I love everybody out there, but there's some people that used to come to me about what I should do, and I used to look them straight in the face, like, listen, you have no idea what I'm experiencing right now. You're happily married. There's not a lot you can do to help guide me through this situation because you haven't been in my shoes. You haven't experienced these emotions, these processes, right? And those are good meaning persons. They mean well, they don't mean no harm. They just want to help. And then there's the people that actually see you for who you are. Listen, hey, listen, you my brother. And these are the people that really helped me. People that didn't see me as a divorced man. They saw me as Tommie going through his process. That was so valuable to me because I was able to walk with my head up and not have to walk with my head down like, man, everybody gonna see I'm this divorced dude. I'm walking around with I felt like I had a divorce t-shirt on saying, hey, I messed up my marriage. People that didn't care about that, they saw me as Tommie. So their purpose in my life, what they brought to the table was, listen, we gonna walk with you through what you're dealing with. The nights when you feel like you want to do something crazy, give us a call and we gonna hang out, we gonna talk, we play some 2K, we'll talk about what you feeling with, you know. Whatever you're dealing with, we're there for you. And those are the people that you really need to surround yourself. Listen, if you're watching this right now, you're going through a divorce, you're dealing with a divorce, you've been divorced, whatever, I encourage you, find a community of people that's going to walk with you. Don't get around people that's going to encourage your foolishness, that's going to tell you to do this and do that and get back at them and make them lie. That ain't the route to go. To really navigate divorce, you need a community of people. Number one, you need God because you can't do it without him. I tried for like 2 weeks doing it without God and it did not work well. You need God. Then you need a church family. Wherever you go to church at, get you around a community of church people that's gonna like really build you up and really encourage you on them days where you just like, and so the community outside of your church, outside of your family, people that's gonna walk with you through your process. That they don't see you as this divorced person, this person that just lost everything. They see you as a human being going through a process. And when you surround yourself with those type of people, that type of community, it's not easy. Like, I'm not saying I'm perfect. It'd be days where I'm good. I can be good for 4 or 5 months, and then I'll have something that trigger me, and I'll go back to, and I have to have them people to reel me back in. Okay, and that's another thing. Don't penalize yourself for making emotional decisions, as long as you acknowledge that, yeah, I shouldn't have did that. That was wrong. And you make the adjustments to fix those issues. Divorce is a very intense emotional experience. And like when you're not grounded and when you don't have that community of people around you, you're liable to say, do anything. So then, like I said, this is why it's important to surround yourself with people that's going to walk you through this process. You know, Dion, like I said, I don't like calling you Dion, but he has been very instrumental in this process, even in conversation, simple conversation of him just calling me, hey, Tommie, how you doing? Everything all right? And I can be real with him, like tell him, like, yeah, nah, I'm not good right here. Pray for me in this area, right? And he don't give me no big old, 100 scriptures or what I can do. Like, he talked to me like, oh, all right, cool. I'll be praying for you in that area. We can pray for you in that area. We can work on that. Let's go out to lunch. Let's do that. Having people like that is so vital to navigating this process. Now, I've seen so many people try to navigate divorce alone, and it's sad watching people go down a path of they're not willing to get the help and the assistance that they need. So, to answer that question, to navigate divorce, you need community. Without community, I don't think anybody can navigate divorce.
Let me add to that, if I will. Jesus dealt with relationship issues, and I always bring this scripture up because I find it absolutely phenomenal. Y'all remember the woman at the well, and people miss the point of that whole thing. It's how Jesus dealt with relationships, Leon. This woman comes up and she's looking to draw some water, and Jesus makes a statement to her. He says, I have water to drink of that you will never thirst again. So this woman's like, first of all, she couldn't believe Jesus was talking to her because of her cultural differences. But he makes this statement. He said, I got water to drink of that you will never thirst again. If you drink of this water, you're not going to thirst. But what he was really after was her relationship issues. So he's conversing with her. Then the next question he asked, which is very strange, he said, go get your husband. Why would you tell this woman, first of all, I got water to drink of that you will never thirst again? Then he says, go get your husband. And she says, as we know, I don't have a husband. What he was after was, I know why you're having trouble with your relationship issues, right? Yes, you don't have a husband, and the man you with right now does not belong to you. Here's the solution. The reason why you're having relationship issues is because you have voids in your life that have never been fulfilled. And you've been looking for men to fulfill those voids, or a woman if it's a different case, and they can't do it. Your first priority in order to have a healthy relationship is to drink of me so that I can fulfill all your thirst. In other words, I am the only one that can fulfill your deepest needs. A man or woman can deal with your surface level needs, but until you allow me to deal with your deepest needs, you're always going to struggle with relationships. And so what I would say to those that are listening, that are out there that have relationship issues, go to God first and foremost and ask him to heal you. Take of him and engage your heart with him and let him fix you foremost. So one of the things that I found when my heart is off, when it's hurt, when it's broken, I see incorrectly. I make poor decisions. But when my heart is whole, when my heart is fixed, it gives me an ability to see people the way God sees them. Yeah. If we see them through our own eyes, we'll judge them, we'll belittle them, we won't walk with them, we'll criticize from afar off, when Jesus wants us sometimes to get next to people and walk with them through the process. But if your heart is impure, you'll never be able to see people the way that God sees them. So I really feel that there's some people out there who are struggling with relationships, and understand that selfishness is brutal on any type of relationship. Selfishness is a killer of relationships. If you are a selfish person, you are going to struggle with relationships, period. Yeah, that selfish piece that Leon talked about at the beginning is critical. You've got to deal with that whole issue. Give God the opportunity to give him your full heart. We get saved, we give our life to God because we're in trouble, but we've never really submitted this heart to God and say, here it is. Deal with this messed up reality of who I am so that I can have healthy relationships. I'm done.
Man, that's good. That's so good. That's so good. That man. Yeah, man. We and when you said that, man, it just made me think like you said, we come to the altar, we get saved, we do all this, but we never really submit that aspect of our heart to God. Like, yeah, I need these areas of my life are affecting every other area of my life. And he's the only person that can really fix that. So man, anybody that's watching this, I'm praying that like the last few minutes that we've been talking, and we about to wrap it up real soon, has impacted you, has, tugged at your heart for you to whatever area of your life, man. Like you said, man, we're searching in other areas and other people in romantic relationships, in friendships, in our families. We're searching for those areas to fill these voids that only God can fill, right? We want a friend to be that best friend. We want our lover to be that lover that we search for. We want our brothers and our sisters to be that thing that's closest to us. But the reality is they can never be that. And the more you put that pressure on them to be that, the more you're struggling in your relationships, the more they will let you down because you put that on them. Not because that's who they are, because you put that on them. So the only thing that can fill that void is God, man. That's so good. Leon, you got anything else?
Briefly, I just want to be clear about the fact that Just because I've made it through a few of these chapters successfully doesn't mean that tomorrow I won't have challenges like we are right now. The reality is, somebody said, "How do you balance this and that?" And I clearly said, "I don't." The reality is, there's no balance for it. There's a rhythm to it, and once we see the rhythm, and once we flow in the rhythm of relationship and communication, then it makes sense. Because in relationship, you may go a 6 month drought of just pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring. And if you feel like, hey man, I got to find this balance, you won't see the key of you having enough strength to do so. It is okay to be where we are. It is okay to be where you are. It is okay. It's more than okay. I dare say it is God's plan for your life right now. The reality is, your acknowledgement of this deficiency is what's going to put us into where we need to be. But it is fully okay to be not okay. It is fully okay to be just disassociated and isolated. It is okay to be that way. You're perfect that way, but not to stay that way. And the keys to not staying that way is accountability. The keys to staying that way is vulnerability with the right people. Let me tell you, I'm going to sneak a little bit of therapy in there. Go ahead, even if you got to go through 5 of them, whether it's through your insurance or you got to pay out of pocket. Invest in yourself, invest in the business of you. And number 3 and number 4, don't look for a spiritual mother or spiritual father. Look for friends and relationships that can hold you accountable. Nothing against it if you got one, but trust me, don't be codependent. Be authentically who God's made you to be in this moment. It is okay to not be okay.
Man, that's so good, and I think that's the perfect place to just wrap up this entire thing. Dion, did you have any last remarks? Or I did have one question. If you had any resources that you could advise people to use as they're dealing with relationships, any books that you're reading, any podcasts that you're listening to that you would suggest for people to check out to help them in relationships?
I highly recommend anything by Jimmy Evans. I went there to learn how to be a counselor, but he helped my marriage tremendously. And I think that anything by Jimmy Evans is the book Marriage on a Rock is incredible, and it's full of wisdom. And if you can't afford a book, then you can go on YouTube and watch the 4 Laws of Marriage, and he deals with a lot of relationship issues. Um, I, I've had mentors in my life that helped me to deal with things. There was a gentleman on here earlier who was phenomenal relationships. His name is Jason Perry, and I would reach out to him. He's written some books on relationships, on manhood. Jason Perry is a phenomenal person. He was on here earlier, but I love anything by Jimmy Evans. I would highly recommend you just devour those books and get into it. It's helped me personally with my own life.
I'll go and Relationship Goals by Mike Todd is a really good one as well. I can read, but I don't like reading, so I get the audio version of the book to listen to when I'm driving and when I'm at home reading. So check that out as well. You got any suggestions, Leon, before we close out?
I'm trying to find the author of this book that I was recommend. Oh, John Crowder. It's called Money, Sex, Beer, God. Money, Sex, Beer, God, by John Crowder. It's just a different, it's a different perspective on how we see scripture, and the way that it illuminates some of the taboo spaces that I defined real healthy living by, and it gave, okay, this is what God really is after, and these are the distractions man puts you in. So it's just in terms of relationship, because again, relationship with yourself is the first foremost church, right? It's the church of you. It's the temple of you. And then from that, everything else spawns.
Well, thank you everybody that tuned in. You guys can reshare this on a replay. This has been a phenomenal night. Talking these two men, two people that I look up to, two people that inspire me, two people that I look to for advice. And you guys can follow them on social media. But this was Triumph Tuesday, and I feel like, you know, we've had some great conversation, and we're going to hear some stories about this conversation. I'll be sharing clips of this broadcast throughout the week, maybe throughout the month. There's a lot of good information that we share here tonight. I hope you guys and ladies were blessed by this, but this was Triumph Tuesday. Thank you for tuning in. Again, we here every Tuesday at 6 o'clock. I got something I'm working on for next week. It's going to be just as good as this. You guys don't want to miss it. So again, thank you for tuning in to Triumph Tuesday. I will see you guys next Tuesday at 6 o'clock p.m., not a.m., 6 o'clock p.m. So I'll see you guys then.
Seen it all, yeah. I thought that I really knew. Hey, yeah. I thought of love, yeah. A love so pure and true. I've even crossed paths with people and seen their love grow faint. Yeah. All that you've been through, I've been there, and his love stays the same, yeah. He sees almost past my faults, and he keeps chasing me. I got relationship goals, but only God knows how to